and welcome to the Healthy Half Hour podcast. We are your hosts, Richard and Karen Inslee.
The Healthy Half Hour podcast is your resource for all things healthy, and we will be discussing how to make nutrition, fitness and lifestyle choices work for you.
We will be sharing our own personal insights along with research gathered from working in the health and fitness industry for the past 10 years.
Our show is brought to you by the 7 Day Shred, which can be found at 7dayshred.com, and please feel free to visit our podcast website, which can be found at healthyhalfhourpodcast.com.
And now on to today's show. Hi and welcome back to the Healthy Half Hour podcast. This is Richard and Karen, your Healthy Half Hour podcast hosts, and today we're going to look at how to fix a broken metabolism. But...
is it really broken?
Not really. It's a bit of a misnomer that people say, oh, my metabolism's broken. To be honest, you can't really break a metabolism. You can down-regulate a metabolism, but normally to break a metabolism, you've got to have something seriously wrong with you for that to be in order. So you see websites and people on social media posting about broken metabolisms and stuff, and oh yeah, it's broken, I can't lose weight, blah, blah, blah. Well, really, it isn't broken. So don't switch off right now. We're going to tell you how it may be down-regulated, what to do to up-regulate it, and then again, a lot of things that tie into that metabolic syndrome and different things that can actually affect your metabolism. So we're going to look on getting that metabolism back online and getting it to full tip-top condition. So again, your body can function as it's supposed to function. So from the definition in the dictionary, it says the sum of the physical and chemical processes in an organism by which material substance is produced, maintained and destroyed, and by which energy is made available.
Wow. If you could sound a little less like a zombie.
Like, is everything just Despicable Me with you or what?
It is. And if you want the simple term, basically every time you eat, enzymes in your body will break down the food and convert it to energy, which is the simple.
That's pretty much the nuts and bolts of it, really. It's kind of energy in and kind of how we actually use those calories in our body to make that energy, to make us function. And like I say, there are components in it as well as the maintenance and also the destruction. So again, anabolic and catabolic processes in the body, and they all contribute to your metabolism. So like I say, if it was actually broken, you'd probably be a very sick person. If you're down-regulated, again, it can be from dietary things that you're doing, exercises that you're not doing, but also it can be like enzyme and chemical imbalances in the body.
And metabolic disorders can present when you've got one of those enzymes missing, or maybe it's not actually working properly. So just imagine that you've got a production line and one of the workers isn't present, or one of the workers is not doing the correct job. Then the result is going to be possibly catastrophic, especially if you're like on a car production line.
Something's going to end up being missed. So what happens is the process doesn't happen properly, and then you've got cars going out with 3 wheels on, which again is not necessarily broken, but the car's going to be down-regulated, if you see what we mean.
And metabolic disorders happen when chemical reactions in the body actually alter the metabolic processes. So you wanted to cover...
What am I covering?
I don't know. Like you just told me before we started recording that you were going to talk about what?
Oh dear, it's been one of those days. So one of the main things with actual metabolism and energy production in the body is the mitochondria. We spoke about this before on other podcasts, and basically what the mitochondria are little powerhouse units that actually are in all of our cells in our body. So these little mitochondria, they're the ones that kind of make and produce that energy that keeps us going, and it keeps the cell going. Because again, we're not one whole thing. We're a collection of trillions of cells that all work together. So again, all these cells should signal each other, and all the mitochondria in these cells should work together. So again, sometimes these mitochondria get downregulated and they don't work like they should, which can have a big effect on our metabolism. So with that, what can you do to increase your mitochondria? Well, believe it or not, exercise. Yes, exercise is not just about just getting out there and sweating. It is actually about making improvements to the body. And there's several things that happen in the body when you exercise. And one of them is your muscles will actually make more mitochondria in the cells. So those muscle cells, if they need more mitochondria, your body will actually make more. The more mitochondria you get, the more energy you'll burn. So again with that, so to uprate your metabolism, start some exercising. Also on a cellular level, what happens in the cells is when you've got that glucose flying around the system, what your body will actually do is utilize more of that glucose in the cells by actually using something called a GLUT4 receptor. So these GLUT4 receptors sit inside the cell and don't do anything, but when that cell needs more because of exercise, that GLUT4 receptor will open up and accept more glucose. So again, exercise will actually utilize more energy, because that's rather than you just when you're sitting on your buns all day, you're not going to use a lot because again, your body will down-regulate that energy production. So again, these mitochondria are really, really important. And also, as well as exercise, one thing you can actually do to increase mitochondrial function is actually eat less, believe it or not. Because when you eat less, a little bit technical, but there's something called an SIRT1 gene, and that gene will actually upregulate and boost cellular function when you actually start to eat a little less. And one of the times when, like with fasting, which we talked about again on a previous podcast, that's one of the things that happens with fasting. It can actually boost your metabolism because, again, your cells will start to upregulate and start to use fuel more efficiently and actually start to keep producing energy from things around the cells that are actually normally they would not look at because, again, those things are in the bloodstream.
And I just want to go back to that reference you made about exercise and glucose.
Extra fries.
Extra fries, yeah. I got a t-shirt with that on. Oh. And if you're currently a type 2 diabetic, your body is not able to take that glucose and move it into the cells and use it for energy. And if you consider, say, the analogy of going down a road and there's a no entry sign, that's what's happening when you're type 2 diabetic. But if you actually exercise, that stop sign gets removed. And so your body's then able to uptake the glucose and utilize it for energy. So another reason why it's necessary to move more and exercise. It doesn't have to be some crazy high intensity interval program, but it's just very, very beneficial for type 2 diabetics and those who are insulin resistant.
You mean you could go out for a brisk walk?
A brisk walk is good.
Never going to catch on.
Oh, you reckon?
Mm-hmm. One thing, again, you see on social media and actually even in some textbooks for courses, these people saying that, eat 6 small meals a day and it'll boost your metabolism. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, it doesn't. There's actually no research we've found out there that actually says this.
I actually found one study and it basically, did confirm that 6 meals a day will not benefit the body any more than eating 3 times a day. The difference was marginal, but it basically was the only study that I found, and they found like such little evidence to support it.
But if you do find one, do send us.
Yeah,
we'd be
please.
very interested.
Yeah.
So again, what they say is, it's supposed to regulate your blood sugar and blah, 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 and it's supposed to help just keep your metabolism burning all day long. Well, really, again, this is just something somebody's made up. Because if you think of eating 3 meals a day, after each meal, yes, you're going to have an insulin, you're going to have a blood sugar spike, and insulin is going to be produced from the pancreas to cope with the blood sugar. And again, partition that sugar out of the blood so the blood sugar doesn't get too high and either put it into the liver, into the muscles, or put it into the fat cells. So with this, you're going to get 3 times a day if you have 3 balanced meals a day, and you actually have 3 blood sugar spikes. And again, when I say spikes, not through the roof, but obviously your blood sugar is going to be affected. So if you eat 6 times a day, now you're going to have 6 blood sugar spikes. And again, with these 6 blood sugar spikes, your body's basically working harder. So the people that say, oh, your body's working less, that's untrue. Your system never actually gets a rest until you go to bed. And so with that, your system's constantly being used all the time, and it never gets that kind of rest time and just a little bit of time off. And like Karen says, if you look at in the studies, there aren't any studies that say it actually does anything to do with your metabolism. The only caveat to this is if you do have blood sugar regulation issues, and some people do, they can't go for more than a few hours without having the shakes because, again, their body doesn't regulate blood sugar as well as it should. So yes, you may need to eat more times a day, so that 6 might work better for you. You may have a job or something where eating 6 smaller meals works better for you. Again, carry on. There are situations where eating 6 smaller meals is a good thing, but when it comes to metabolism boosting, it doesn't do anything at all.
And I mentioned about type 2 diabetics having issues with blood sugar, and a lot of them are insulin resistant, and I'm not sure whether you're familiar with the term metabolic syndrome, but this actually occurs when there's a range of metabolic risk factors coming together, and obesity and insulin resistance is actually 2 of the main ones that will actually be 2 of those risk factors that present as metabolic syndrome. And insulin resistance is impacted even more by, believe it or not, lack of sleep. And sleep is so important when it comes to metabolic flexibility, because even just one night of poor sleep can actually impair your body's ability to balance your blood sugar levels. Because what will actually happen, you'll start to that dysregulation in your sleep will actually increase cortisol levels. It'll cause a build-up of chronic stress levels. And that is even more prevalent when you're insulin resistant. And poor sleep will actually down-regulate your body's ability to control your insulin levels. And if your liver actually gets out of whack and isn't doing its job properly, then your body actually will start pumping out more glucose into your bloodstream, even when your blood glucose levels are still high.
So we've been mentioning about the metabolism, and again, how it isn't broken, it's probably just down-regulated. So again, what we're going to look at now is how to up-regulate it. So again, a lot of times with people, they need to kind of get that metabolism going again to start that process of losing weight and actually getting the body to function properly. And as we said at the top of the show, really, exercise is one of the things you can do. And like Karen says, you don't have to go running marathons and things like that. You should do enough exercise. And again, in that cardio range where you're actually doing things to get the heart pumping a little more. And then also, obviously, lifting some weights. Because again, the more, not necessarily muscle you're going to build, but the better condition you get the muscle in, then it's going to produce more mitochondria. And your body's going to uprate your metabolism in that area naturally. And again, you're going to start to use more blood sugar. And one thing after exercise as well is, obviously we've spoke about before, is the EPOC. So that's exercise post-oxygen consumption. So it's not just while you're exercising that you're actually going to uprate your metabolism and uprate your body's systems. This happens for hours after you've exercised, as your body now tries to re-establish those energy stores. And again, a lot of different things happen post-exercise, which are really, really good for your health. Obviously, we've spoken ad nauseum on previous podcasts about whole foods. And we've also mentioned on previous podcasts the thermal efficiency of foods. So again, what this means basically is when you eat a whole food, there's a certain amount of energy that's actually utilized to actually break that food down into its component parts. So again, if you're eating whole foods and not processed foods, that process is actually fairly demanding on the body.
And so with a whole food diet, so obviously your body's going to be breaking down the foods that you eat. But when you consume a lot of highly processed foods that have been bought in a package, the plant, the processing line, like the all that like breaking down of like the nutrients in the foods has already been done by something mechanical, by a machine.
And even like with the highest thermal effective food is protein. So again, because it takes so much to denature and detangle those proteins to make them actually usable in amino acid form in the body. So I mean, if you're eating plant proteins or meat proteins or eggs and things like that, the body's working overtime to actually do that for you. So if you're just drinking protein shakes and stuff, I mean, that stuff's ground down to powders. So I mean, you're losing that thermal effectiveness of that food to actually burn that energy. And again, it doesn't sound like a lot, but in the greater scheme of things, that percentage of energy really does go to help boost your metabolism in the long run. So another thing as well with the metabolism, a lot of times people have dieted themselves down to 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 calories. And when you've done that chronically for years and years and years, your body just gets very good at being very tight with calories. So what I mean when I say tight with calories is your body requires energy to do a lot of processes in the body. So I mean, what the body will do is the body will start to cut back on these processes. You may notice your fingernails aren't very good, or your hair's in bad condition, or your skin's not great. And a lot of these things, or you kind of have low energy through the day. So what happens is your body is actually down regulating these systems, because obviously it's important to run your brain and run your heart and your liver and your kidneys, but everything else kind of gets put on the back burner a little bit and less energy is expended. So one of the things we have to do with clients sometimes is reverse diet them. And with reverse dieting, as we've said, I think a podcast number 5 or 6, in the exercise or diet one, we actually said that reverse dieting, you need to kind of build your caloric intake up, again, just to get your metabolism firing. There's always going to be that line of too many calories and your body's going to store it as body fat, but also as the opposite is true, at too little calories, your body's going to downrate your metabolic processes, so you just end up keeping more fat. So again, people just diet the hell out of themselves or just have way too many calories, and then again, the body can get catabolic with muscle because it wants to keep those body fat stores because it doesn't really know what's going off. So it's really important to eat enough calories to sustain your metabolism and again, get that metabolism boosted, but obviously not too many calories. And like we've said before, from a satiation point of view, eating whole foods with whole proteins, whole fats, your body's got mechanisms in there that'll actually tell you when you've had enough to eat. And that one thing with processed carbohydrates, that signal never gets sent to the brain, so we just tend to keep eating. So again, eating those whole foods is going to help boost your metabolism purely from a signaling point of view that your body's going to send the right signals up to your brain, and you're going to have a self-regulation process that'll actually work for you instead of against you.
And the thermic effect of food is different whether you're eating proteins, carbs or fats. And if you were one of our, what did we say last week? That we got 8 listeners like now?
If you were one of the first 7.
If you're one of the first ones listening to our podcast.
It's probably a different 8 though.
Probably. Then you'll remember, or will at least jog your memory, that if you eat 100 calories of protein, by the time your body's broken down and done its metabolic processes to get it into its component parts, you'll probably only uptake around 75 of those calories. If you eat 100 calories of carbs, you'll probably uptake around 96 of those calories. So quite a difference. And 100 calories of fat, you will uptake around 98 calories. But if you are already clinically diagnosed as obese or overweight, your body will not be as thermally efficient with those processes. And I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but the more overweight you are, the less you will be able to take advantage of that thermic effect of the food.
So if you eat 100 calories of sugar, you'll probably get 100 calories of energy out of it because, again, sugar really doesn't take any breaking down in the body.
So, and you're bouncing off the wall.
True that. So with, again, those processed even cereals and things like that, again, it's just a lot of processed sugars that actually break down. And one of the things, again, when we teach our healthy eating and weight loss course, is that we tell people, again, going back to the 6 small meals, you eat a cereal in the morning, and then 10:30 in the morning, later in the day, you're starting to feel hungry already. And so you have a snack bar. So the people that sell you the cereal sell you the snack bar.
Do they?
It's a conspiracy.
Oh.
So again, what you're eating in the morning, again, having a higher fat, higher protein breakfast will keep you satiated more until lunchtime, so you won't feel hungry. I've been out working in the garden today and came in and felt hungry and had a drink, and I wasn't hungry, I was just thirsty. That hunger went away after I had something to drink. Just because I've been out there working, I thought I was hungry, but I had a glass of water and I've been fine ever since. So sometimes, again, those signals can get a little bit mixed up.
We mistake hunger for thirst.
Yes.
Or
and
thirst for hunger.
It is also okay to be hungry. You know, people, I need to have a snack because I felt hungry. Well, it's not necessarily a bad thing to be hungry. I mean, it's just a signal again from your stomach to your brain that says, maybe we should eat something. But there's a lot of systems like we spoke about in the fasting podcast that actually come into play, and your blood sugar will be fine. And like I say, just saying, if you do have the shakes, then don't not eat something, because again, you'll be lying on the floor having more shakes. So do listen to your body from that point of view. And again, if you really, feel sick or anything, do eat something, but you don't necessarily have to eat in between meals just because you feel hungry. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
But if it's a medical condition, hypoglycemic, then yeah, do have something, because you don't want to be sick from it.
Oh, I thought you were going to say die.
I was going to say die, but I thought, well.
So, how do we get to that? So, with this, again, metabolism, no, it isn't broken. It just needs a little bit of work to fix it. And again, what we've just spoke about today, we've skimmed over some of the things that can affect your metabolism. And again, Dr. Google's out there and they'll fix everything. And as we say in every podcast, pretty much, it's down to the individual. You've got to find what works for you and what will boost your metabolism. Going on that road from an epigenetic point of view, again, we've spoke about epigenetics before. We've all got genes in our body, and epigenetics is basically how those genes are manipulated with our environment. So we're all slightly different. So what works for you may not work for your friend or even your relative or even your sibling. So a lot of the time it is a pain in some ways to kind of find out what works for you, but just doing cookie cutter diets and then, I'm not losing any weight. Well, tweak it a little bit. Try it for a week. Have a look at the scale. See what happens. If the scale doesn't move, tweak it a little bit. And again, don't tweak it massive amounts. And like with the reverse dieting, don't just go from, I've been eating 1,100 calories for the last 5 years and then start eating 2,000 calories, because your body won't know what to do with it. Increase slightly, increase 100 calories a week, and then just kind of find that point. See how your energy is. You may increase your calories if you are tracking your calories by 50 or 100 calories a day, and find out your energy just starts getting boosted. You may try just changing what you're eating slightly, may add a little bit more fats into your diet and take the carbs out of your diet. And again, it may work for you. You may have been on a low carb diet for I don't know how long, and then you start adding some sweet potatoes and things like that back into your diet. And
mashed potato.
Shh, calm down. And then that will increase, again, your metabolism, because you'll start to feel better. Especially what we've found with females over 40 is, again, they tend to go on low-carb diets, and it really doesn't do them a lot of good. Especially, again, if they're active as well. So we found having starches in the supper time or late afternoon can really help with sleep with females who are in the 40s, 50s, 60s. So some it does, some it doesn't. So again, there's a lot of different experimental things. And if you do have questions or you have something that you're not sure about, by all means, drop us a line at questions@healthyhalfhourpodcast.com. So with this, again, we've talked about metabolism and again, how the body burns fats, proteins and carbs, but how does the body burn stored fat? Because we've spoke about burning them that you're actually ingesting, but it's trying to get that fat mobilized in the body, because again, that's what really a lot of the times a lot of people are listening to this for, is because they want to learn how to burn that body fat that they've got stored up in the body. So next week's podcast, that's what we're going to hit.
And this week, I've kept quiet considerably, which is unusual. But I touched on insulin resistance and sleep, and it's something that is definitely two topics that we're going to delve into in that fat burning podcast next week, because they are all relevant to that fat burning process.
Yep, so next week, all about burning body fat. See you then.
That's all we have time for right now, but we do hope that you join us for our next show. And if you want to contribute to an upcoming show by suggesting a topic that you would like us to discuss in more detail, then hop over to our website, healthyhalfhourpodcast.com, subscribe to our podcast and submit your suggestions. The Healthy Half Hour Podcast was brought to you by the 7 Day Shred, and don't forget to share our details with your friends and review our show. Until next time, thanks for listening.